Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wartscenter quarterfinals edition. So we started our playoffs. We had 8, and now we are down to 4. Joined with me today is Coach Brando, Coach Ivan, and Coach Kamish Laws. How y'all doing?
Put some respect on his name. Almost called him Coach.
I'm not upset about it, don't worry.
It's okay, I'm upset enough for you.
But yeah, so we're gonna just get right into it. This is coming to you a little bit later due to some vacation and other difficulties. But bam, there it is. Here's the bracket. Here's what's happened. We'll get into these a little bit closer. But you'll see on the left side of your screen, we had a pair of upsets if you're counting the seed as the higher seed being the upper dog. And then on the right side, you see everything go to plan with the higher seed. I will note that every bracket is busted.
Didn't take long.
Did not take long, I think.
Very fast.
Yeah. I will have to double check.
Yeah,
I'll have to double check. I don't know if every single one is busted, but I'm pretty confident that every single bracket is busted.
I imagine there's one game that probably caused that. So
there's a notable one, yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair,
yeah,
the left side of the bracket was generally favoring the higher seed teams, and neither of that happened. So that's your main culprit. All right, and without further ado, let's talk about these matches. So, Laws, I'm glad you're here. Let's have you break down your quarterfinal match.
Yep. You can't keep a good rat down, and you could have killed me when you had the chance. Defending champion Mighty Rats, I think, is probably a big part of the equation. I think for long-time, followers of the league should be part of the equation. Is that I snuck into playoffs this season. It was a 4th-seeded team. I have no business probably even hanging with the Dark Iron, who were a record-setting team in the casualty column. They were very tough to beat, and this is easily one of the hardest games of Blood Bowl I've ever had to play. Me and Cody apparently are going to have a history of playing games in sweltering heat, as for the second straight time we faced each other, we will be playing in sweltering heat. For those that might have been watching the stream, there might have been a little myth on how the rules worked in sweltering heat, but I think things straightened themselves out for the 2 drives where it actually mattered. But getting past any little subtleties like that, I did have to play with inducements, and I brought Glart, Smash Rip, and a Wizard, and both of those things were relative to the 6 turns that led up to the first touchdown of the game before Sweltering Heat even kicked in. Right out the gates, I was playing screens left and right, just waiting to see how much room I was going to be given if something was going to go south. Lysar immediately gets the casualty on Dustchin, who is one of the only non-journeyman rats that I was playing with. For those that remember from our Week 9 coverage, almost all of my team got misnecked game against the Mudclaws, so I was playing with 5 journeymen this week. And then you'll see that the clutch decision on my part was the follow-up casualty to Falgash, the Blitzer. That is where the Apothecary got used. He went straight to reserves for it. He'll become relevant later in the game. But in this sequence, I believe it was turn 3, he had the ball at roughly midfield in the hands of his Edge 2 runner, which is already a dangerous thing to know that there was a dwarf with Edge 2. And I had my Lone Gunner runner, Corporate Crowcrest, on the other side of a wall of dwarves and what was barely standing of my rat line. And that is when I decided to use the Wizard Zap instead of the Fireball, which was mathematically a better play than the Fireball on the merit of I just needed to get the ball loose. And I think it's going to be one of the most important plays in the history of my franchise if this ends up being a back-to-back run, because the Zap succeeds. I threw a 4, needed a 3. Procrest makes the run around the line, and manages to make the pickup, which was the most dangerous part for it, because even with the pickup, that was a full 9 moves. So I had to make a double go for it, and I still had, I think, I want to say 3 dwarves that were available. You can go back and watch the broadcast if you'd like.
Mhm.
I managed to get my other blitzer. I did have both blitzers in this game. That was another redeeming case. To flank one side, but the go for it on a stand up from one of my extra line rats failed, so he was not super well protected. I got lucky that he only managed to push Crowcrest along on the next sequence. I believe that's how it ended up playing out. He didn't knock him down, obviously, and just used the movement advantage that the Gutter Runner has because he had taken 3 turns of progressing the Dwarven wall forward. He didn't have time to back up when I stopped in front of the end zone. Managed to stall for a turn, and that punched in the turn 6 touchdown. And the stream will tell you there's nothing on this score sheet. The very next play was after the kick, and sometimes you're just going to make a misstep. Cody ends up only advancing his dwarf blitzers far enough to be short of being able to score in the end zone. But then I went and marked his players just out of, I guess, novelty of the equation, which actually created a potential chain push that almost worked, including a double go for it to set up the chain push. And then the pass went off. He just unfortunately wasn't able to catch it. And it was very close. So mistake on his part, mistake on my part, not even thinking about it. But good on him for finding it. So it was nearly 1-1 at the half, which would have changed the complexion of this entire game. And then we started the second half in the pouring rain, and as you can see, Dory goes to town and picks up a casualty right out the gates. So I'm trying to mitigate damage as much as possible at this point. It's 3 casualties, and I am just trying to keep as many rats on the pitch as possible. I actually only started the drive in the second half with, I think, 6 rats. So, there's a lot of KOs in this situation. Glark Smash Rip's in and out of the KO box. He doesn't do a ton in this game, but he was a body, and that was a big, useful thing in the equation. And then the next thing you'll see is Falgash casualty on Owen. The Dark Iron rarely gets hit with the casualty, and this was a very lucky 1-die block to free up a square for Crowcrest, who was swinging along the outside. I had basically 2 bodies. It was the blitzer and the runner, and he managed to sneak through the hole, and that ultimately created Crowcrest scoring the touchdown to go up 2-0. And there's still more casualties to come. Dark Iron ended up scoring a touchdown on turn 15, but I mean, when you go up 2-0 in a situation like that, the doors are not completely closed, but it's swinging fast. And this was easily one of the most intense games of Blood Bowl I've ever played. Like I said, I've had to play slippery and tactical games before. This is the slimiest I've ever felt because I hate stalling, and I had to do it twice in this game. But that's literally to buy time against a Dwarven team that can and will just roll over you if you give them any amount of time to do it. And I wouldn't say I've been critical of Cody's tactics before because of a lack of risk, which kind of comes with being a dwarf coach. But he's shown, especially in the late part of this season, that he doesn't necessarily like taking risks, but he will take those risks, and he showed it in this game. It just wasn't nearly enough to equalize this game at the end of the day. But needless to say, he was the better team in most ways. I just had a lot of things I needed to go right, and that's really where it ended up, falling. So tons of credit to him. He had an amazing season. I had, relatively speaking, a pretty terrible season trying to remember how to coach a Skaven team without a cheat code. And it ends up in this situation. It was an amazing game. I almost kind of wish it wasn't the simulcast, because I think watching this game front to back in front of you would allow you to really divulge in the whole 9 yards of it. But
Yeah.
we're here for entertainment, not for really intense high level Blood Bowl play. There are other channels for that.
For sure.
NKBBL is about fun at the end of the day, and
Yep.
again, I liked having fun and playing this game, and that's the first and foremost. But it's playoffs, it's crunch time. This was a very tight game, and tons of credit to Cody. Um, Tons of credit to myself because again, I had to pull out all the stops to end up making this 2-1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely not what most people had on their bingo card, especially considering you went in without a Rat Ogre and quite a few of your important pieces. So,
yeah, it had to use every tool that was presented to me,
mm-hmm.
and the large inducement package was a variety of options. I'll be completely honest. Shout out to Chadwell, who was playing Skaven this season in his first lap around, and he pulled the same trick out of the book. He induced a wizard
with the wizard
against the Dark Iron in week 9, and that is part of the reason that game ended in a draw.
Yep. And then just for context, I realized the scoreboard does not look super correct. So there was 5 casualties for Khazad-dûm and only 2 for the Mighty Rats. So apologies. As you can see by the different formatting on here, we made some mistakes, but it's all right. We'll get this all tightened up for finals, and then next season it'll be perfect. So you guys stay tuned for that, though.
No mistakes ever.
No, ever. It'll be crazy. All right. Well, then we'll move on to the number 2 seeded Black Forest Guardians versus the New England Matriarchs. So it's funny that you mentioned the chain push potential touchdown play, because that also came into play here. So me against Waters, I lost the coin toss. He chose to receive. I think as far as inducement, there was only like 80k, so he decided to take a cheerleader and a keg, so nothing too crazy.
You got keg and cheerleader here.
Yep. So he starts off able to throw a few pals on the first turn, get up the field, and really plays it aggressively as he's wont to do, and is in scoring range by turn 2. I think we were both not breaking armor at all. Like the first turn, he takes his punches, bases me, and then I take my punches in reverse. I think I knocked down 7 of his 11 Amazons and didn't break that 8+ armor once. So felt a little bad, but that's the way the game goes. And that did give me the advantage by that turn 2 to actually swing back and knock the ball out of the ball carrier. I knocked it out on the sideline. I was hoping it bounced out and came back my way. It didn't bounce out. It was sitting on the sideline. I had a blitzer there waiting. I even told Waters, I was like, maybe I do this 2+ dodge and then the 2+ pickup and just and the 2+ go for it and just like get it into my hands. But I was obviously worried about failing it and opening up for him to score on the following turn with somebody that he picked up. However, I forgot that the blitzers have jump up. So I stay there with the ball marked. He runs up with one of the blockers, blitzes up me off, and then I didn't think there was anybody in scoring range. Well, the blitzer jumped up, picked up the ball, and ran it in on turn 3. So that was definitely a misplay on my end, but the tools were there, and Waters knew what he was working with. So kudos to him for that. And then, so, it was an early score, though, so I kind of got part of what I wanted. Like, obviously, you want to stop the touchdown if you can, but if I can force you to score in 3, I'm happy to try to take my 5 turns and equalize, right? So we started driving down. You see, we got a casualty right off the rip. A good little mix next game. That was good. We started to feel some momentum go our way. And then not a whole lot happened. Again, the lack of breaking armor continued for both of us throughout most of the day. And I had gotten to a point where I was pretty swamped on like the right side of the pitch, and I had a catcher and 2 blitzers over on the left side that I could have made a break for. So I was trying to set up that play. I run the blitz, I open the lane, and then there was one Amazon that I wanted to base in order to kind of close off the attack if I were to go and get it to that catcher. And so I do the go for it. Of course, you roll the 1. You always roll the 1. Roll the 1 on the go for it, use the re-roll into the 1. So now I was in a situation where my ball was still in that cluster over on the right side, and I, kind of lost tempo on that. So he proceeds to get the ball off of me there, and it gets to like turn 7 and my turn 7 into his turn 8, and I'm like, well, he can't score. I put him out of range, so I'm just trying to get my hits, and maybe I can get a score, maybe a casualty, or get a score in the second half, maybe a casualty in this last part of the first half, and then that'll help me if we see a potential overtime. However, while doing that, he was 2 squares away from being able to score. I was making attacks and blocks around, ended up in a chain push situation on that ball carrier, which has sidestep. It was because it was Sonia that has sidestep, so she sidestepped closer, and I'm like, oh shit, I think I need to settle down a little bit, because that's one more and then she can go score. But the way I had already set up my blocks, it was already there, and I just saw it, and I was like, dang, there it is. Credit again to Waters. He saw it too. He was playing like a champion. He blitzed in, got it out, sidestep 1 step closer, got the dodge out, and the 2+2+ on the both go for us to score. So at that point, I'm thinking, this isn't good, right? My team is not very fast. 2 touchdowns and a half. It's not impossible, but it's not great. My only speed ability is that I have a pretty good thrower and catcher combination. But I forgot to mention, this whole game we've been playing in the pouring rain. So what advantage I did have had been diminished that whole time. So I receive it. We got to move fast, right? Because I got to score. I got to score again, and I want to have plenty of time to do so. Like, I wasn't going to go down without a fight. That was one thing I definitely held on to. It's like, if I'm getting knocked out first round, I'm gonna make sure I left it all out there. So we throw a pretty insanely long pass at the beginning to get it over to Forrest Stump and get him within scoring range. Unfortunately, it gets a little gummed up. I maintain the ball, but it becomes hard to get through the wall of Amazons at a certain point. I do, however, get the casualty on turn 13, which allows me to put in the touchdown. And then, as you see, nothing else happened the remainder of the game. He drives it down and gets it damn near into scoring range. Obviously it's like turn 15. He's on the sideline in scoring range. I have a insane blitz opportunity to possibly get it to bounce out and go my way. I still have a catcher down there to possibly equalize this. And it was the blitzer was surrounded. So it was a 4+ dodge out into a 3+ into a 2+. Into another 3+, because I had to dodge into the tackle zone and across the face of somebody that was standing next to the ball carrier. And then obviously my both go for it. And then it was a 1-die block against I think Bright Moon, who has block and dodge. So it had to be a 6. I had no tackle on this player. So I said, all right, cool. So it's 4+, 3+, 2+, 3+, 2+, 2+, and then a 6+, and it worked somehow. Rolled the PAL right at the end. It was insane, and knocked the ball down. However, the ball didn't bounce out like I needed it to, so I didn't have a thrower close enough to go get it or anything like that. So we came just short of pulling off the miracle play, and time ran out for the Guardians. So. But yeah, it was a good game, and those 3 moments, like the jump up miss on my part, the chain push misplay, and then possibly knocking that ball out at the end, like, it could have been a completely different game. It was on a razor's edge, even though he got a really hot start. It was a good game of Blood Bowl. happiest I've ever been losing my season. I will say, I was having a good time.
I mean, you did have a really good season coming out of a tough start, but then going into the 2 seed.
Yeah, I
Got the
mean,
monkey off your back at one point.
Got the monkey off your back.
Started
Yeah.
0-2. Yeah, but I think Sea Elves, or they're Sea Elves in Secret League. They're not my play style, and I think there's something to be said for taking a movement hit versus an armor buff. I think I'd just rather have the movement 10 times out of 10, but
That's fun and believable sometimes is exploring, different ways to play the game.
Yeah.
Because there are so many diverse teams, and some of them obviously do have parallel play styles, and you learn what kind of trade-offs you have. And like you said, it might just be a play style thing more than anything. But
Oh, and one other thing, we didn't get to talk about it for the other 2 matches. We should never have domes in playoff matches ever. Ever. Just saying.
yeah.
The wildest things happen in playoffs, and it's usually involving weather.
Yep.
Love it.
Yep, there was definitely weather issues in both of those. I think on the other end of the bracket, it was all perfect weather, though, so who knows?
yeah, on the side of the bracket are perfect weather games. And to add to it, we're not going to cover them tonight, but there were 2 other games played in Week 10 that were non-playoff games.
Yep.
Both of those games started in pouring rain.
Lovely. All right. And then moving on to the other side of the bracket, Liz with Attitudes get the job done against the Grung. So in Liz's with Attitude fashion, not a whole lot to talk about on the score sheet. Nash Out gets a casualty on turn 4. They put the touchdown in on turn 8. Later, Uptow retaliates with a casualty of their own on turn 10, and then they get a touchdown on turn 12, and then the Lizzes put it in on turn 15. So not the full stall, it seems. So I don't know if Uptow had a chance to equalize right there on their turn 16, but it seemed like it was a pretty close little match with only a small amount of casualties between the two, and the 2-1 victory for the Lizzes.
Yeah, I do want to call out, you did mention, low event game, hallmark of an LWA game. But Uptown did come into this game as a struggling 4 seed. They had just lost star player Timothy, and in that same game, Hitsa also went down. So this is the Grung going into a major matchup down both of their star players. They chose to fight uphill, and with that inducement package, they took the mighty Zug, and it didn't seem like he was nearly enough of an equalizer for the equation.
Didn't even get 1 casualty. What a bum.
What a bum.
At least he did his best. He tried really hard, and you got to give him credit for that.
Oh, for sure.
His legs were not long enough.
You know who has short legs, and they did just fine with them? Two Croc, which movement 9.
Yep.
Skink with Blodge. Get out of here.
Yep. He's
Guy's a monster. Despite being
he's a
lizard,
monster.
Not a Gila
despite
monster.
Being
He's
so
a lizard.
short.
Put the coffin nail in at the end.
Yeah.
All right, and then lastly, the Dragons defeat the Polypore Pipers, which you would have saw on the simulcast. Although I will admit the simulcast was a bit chaotic, so I don't know how much of either of those matches were actually fully understandable. But we learned.
It's work in progress.
I think we'll keep it to 1 in the future, but unless we've come up with a different way to handle it. But
there will be a time and place for 2 pitches at one time.
For sure.
I thought it was neat.
It was cool. Don't get me wrong. It was cool. We almost need maybe
a separate coach narrating.
Maybe
game.
a 2 commentary crew, each with an eye on each game. And they can share information with each other on the simulcast. That should be fine.
All right, now all we need is headsets and a desk and 3-piece suits for everyone to wear, and then I think we're in business.
Which I'll talk to you guys later. We'll have to figure out if we want to do Wartscenter live right before the finals, but I've got some ideas. All right. Anyway, with this match here, so the Dragons got started early. Fitzwilliam putting the hurt on Buzzball, the fox, the newly acquired fox. And unfortunately, even with the apothecary, he was pretty badly hurt. Followed later by an early touchdown by Candlekeeper Tim. Then in turn 6, the Butcher Bay Dragons, they said they want to get this done, get on the bus, and head to semis. So they put another score in on turn 6. However, Polyport equalizes, and this was caught on the simulcast because it was a wild series of events. But the Pipers, under the pressure, they decide to stretch down the field with Cuervo, and he ends up doing a series of dodges to get the score in to try to keep the Pipers in this game. In the second half, the Pipers casualtied Woodford got a casualty on one of the Butcher Bay Dragons journeymen, the one of many, and then Butcher Bay retaliates with a casualty on Jameson, one of the gnome linemen. Tim starts to air it out, throws pass to Fitzwilliam, and then again passes it to Edgecombe. So I assume at one point the ball popped out, and then he recovered it and threw yet another pass. And then the coffin nail right at the end of turn 16. Dragons score one more time with Edgecombe, and that's all she wrote. So kudos to the Dragons for moving on to the semis, facing the Pipers yet again, and in dominant fashion, as it seems to be. I do want to talk about the Dragons also when we get to the semis matchup, but they are hot. I don't know if you guys have been following fully the Dragons' trajectory, but it started a little shaky with, I believe, a loss, a win, and then a loss. So at one point in the season, they were 1-2, and since then they have won 6 straight.
Yeah, this is their 6th straight win after losing to Kazadu, playing SCLSU to a draw, and then they got on their horse. It was a fresh Dark Elf squad. They got off to a rough start, much like the Guardians did.
Yep.
And I think they just had to find their rhythm and get a little bit of momentum, and they have been riding that high ever since.
Yep.
I would say the only one behind them on the hot hand table would probably be the New England Matrix. And looking at the schedule, it looks like the only loss they've had in the 6-game stretch was to the Dragons.
Yep.
So 2 hot teams coming out of the Blood Division.
Yep, for sure. And then also all the credit to the Pipers. Huge thanks for stepping in for us as we had some people drop out. So it was great to get a gnome team in and on the pitch. And even though with a little bit of a late start and not as much development as you would like during a single season, still managed to show up in playoffs and claw at the chance for semis. Like at one point this was 2-1. It could have gone anyway. So
yeah, even with the Dragons putting up the 3rd touchdown to make it a 3-1 final, there was a minute there in the second half I was glancing over since it was the other game. The Pipers were not going down easily as compared to the Week 8 game. It was a case where the Dragons probably had enough control that they had the game, in their hands. But I mean, the Fox has been the question. What does the Fox say? Cuervo says, "I'm going to go score."
Always.
It was the immortal question finally answered.
Yep. So yeah, congrats to both teams. Great showing. All right, so this is normally the part where we would talk about the obituaries, but no one died. Not even in our friendly matches and none of that. So
not for a lack of trying.
Yep. I guess before we talk about the 2 semi matchups, 2 of the coaches here, I believe, had back-to-back games against each other. Do you guys want to shed some light on that and talk about that? Normally we would do a little bit more of a a spotlight on the bowl games that happen after, but we're a little behind the 8 ball in terms of timing and how the games are going. So look forward to that next season. But we can talk about your all's match now.
I mean, if you want, Ivan,
Yeah,
you want to talk about him?
I'd
Sure.
say
All right.
the bowl game was far more interesting than the friendly we had.
Oh, by far.
By
Absolutely.
far. So,
By far.
long story short of the friendly that we had, we were 2 losers facing one another, and we both defended so well. It was, what was the final score, Brando?
1-1
It was
tie with one
1-1.
casualty to a side.
We're so bad at winning. We can we're tying. We're such losers. We can't win. We can only tie.
We can't even lose right. We tie.
We can't even lose right. What a bunch of losers.
Losers. Anyway, the bowl game.
I was gonna say we tried to kill each other several times, and you probably heard us shouting. Nothing but stuns and KOs. We were very disappointed. We wanted to kill each other. Did not.
But alas, did not happen. Now, this bowl game, however, far more interesting. This was the Sun Crushed Bowl.
Ah,
Now, if you're not familiar with the Sun Crushed Bowl, in the area that it takes place in, it rains sticky orange liquid that tastes amazing. However, it makes it very hard to pick up a ball, and it also inspires dwarves to run naked on the field.
There was a streaker.
There was a streaker. He was implemented at turn 3 on either half, and he followed the streaker rules, if you are all familiar, and he was a nuisance. But the Los Alamos aliens managed to take out the first dwarf, but to their dismay, they could not chase down and kill the second one.
Yeah, that was disappointing.
In the chaos, the aliens managed to blitz a touchdown on turn 3, I believe it was.
Yeah, blitz kickoff immediately. Not only did I get the blitz kickoff, I pinned the ball in the far right corner, and I had players ready to go, and I think Zod or one of my other players blitzed an opening for that sideline. I rushed down Warfius, my Dark Elf with sprint, and I just immediately went to try and tag that ball within a couple turns, and with the pouring sun crushed in the air. We knew going into the game that the ball handling was going to be sloppy as hell, and it was, except for the one and only Warfius, who managed to do elf things in the rain.
Get the pickup.
Or Suncrushed.
Yeah. Get the pickup, and he went. I was unable to secure the ball at all within the first half. I couldn't pick it up to save my life. I'm running a Chaos Chosen team, and their edge is not that high, and I could not roll a 4 to save my life most of the match. No. Most of my turnovers were caused by trying to pick up the ball.
It was very sad.
Lovely.
It was hard fought, but those damn aliens beat my ass 2-1 in the Sun Crushed Bowl.
Can I just say, I had a lot of fun.
I had a great time. I just had to throw a couple chairs.
Yeah. You had to throw a couple chairs. I just had a lot of fun because of the streaker and just the mental image of the first streaker that came onto the pitch. So visualize this. Close your eyes. So it's a bunch of Ninja Turtles fighting a bunch of aliens on a Blood Bowl pitch. And suddenly, from the sideline comes a naked dwarf running onto the pitch. And who do they run into? Skia, Season 3's Man of the Year, who immediately tries to kill them and fails. They stumble away. They run behind the line of the aliens line. And who do they run into next? Diablo Zod, who immediately tries to kill them. And they slip away. And then for the rest of that half, they're getting chased by Zod before eventually getting their head crushed in. Oh, absolute cinema.
Because the dwarf had dodge, right?
It had dodge. I don't think I've laughed so hard in a Blood Bowl game in a while, just because it's like, we're just having fun. We're just trying to pick up the ball in this absolute absurdity. And half the time, I'm just having big guys try and like smash a little dwarf in the corner. It's like, okay, this is happening. Best bowl game.
Best bowl game I've been a part of for sure.
Yeah. I was gonna say I've been in 3 different bowl games. This one was by far the best. I don't know if it's because Ivan's just such a fun coach to play against, but I would do this bowl game again in a heartbeat. And if you have the opportunity to do it, I would recommend it because this one was fun. Absolutely.
100%.
The streaker rule is one of those bizarre rules out of the death zone for our viewers, and I did mention earlier in the cast that like NKBBL at the end of the day is about trying to have fun playing Blood Bowl, and it's one of those prime examples. And these bowl games gave us an opportunity to take some goofy rules into the game. It's a completely custom weather table that reaches from a few of the different weather tables that are available in Death Zone, and the Shrieker rule comes from the random match event table, which is very seldomly used unless you're being picky. So shout out to Jake who won Fantasy Football and got the rights to create the theming and rules for this game.
Mhm.
And
Also, I got a question, you,
Present that
Jake.
dwarf.
Raining Sun-Kissed, why? I'm sorry,
Sun Crushed.
Sorry. Please don't sue us, Coca-Cola. Not a sponsor.
not
There was no
sponsored.
sponsor for that game, except the bowl game was the sponsor. We didn't even do
for
the
sure.
sponsorship rules for that match. That was so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, we forgot.
Did we forget, or was
Yeah.
Suncrust
No.
just a sponsor?
I think Suncrush was just the
Yes.
sponsor.
Yeah,
We need a Pop-Tart bowl.
I'm in.
I mean, yeah, who
I'm
knows?
Please.
I mean, the more coaches we add year over year, we're going to have to keep adding bowl games. So, and then for the audience, basically we do for coaches who are out of the playoff picture during those playoff weeks, they still have a game. It's just a bowl game, a la like college football. So, just
With
something
silly little rules.
with then they all have unique rules and things like that. So they deserve a bigger spotlight than we're giving them today, but we will give them that spotlight in the future. So because there's branding, there's a cool logo for the Sun Crush Bowl that that I wanna put on here when we talk about the Sun Crush Bowl next year. So
I'd wear that on an orange shirt.
maybe we can do a postseason wrap up.
yeah,
I
we
think
could
we should.
talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because we'll have plenty of time.
a lot of off-season.
Yep, plenty of off season. But all right, well, without further ado, let's talk playoffs. We've whittled down from 8 to 4, and we've got 2 matches, and only one of them is going to get out of here alive. So first up, we have the New England Matriarchs, the number 3 seed, as the higher seed against the Anaheim Mighty Rats, the 4 seed. What do you guys want to say, want to predict?
This is going to be the match to watch, in my opinion, because both of these teams are rather quick and some would say furious. I would even call them fast instead of quick. And I would even call them fast and furious. Between the two of them, I expect to see a lot of Kazes, but I do expect at the end of the day, we have no missed next games or anything. Okay.
Nope, everyone's healthy.
Straight up match.
Yep.
Straight up match. With a straight up match, I might hand this one to the Rats. I think it's going to be intense. I think it's going to be a 2-1 match, Rats.
I have an opinion.
Let's hear it.
Oh, here he goes.
I have an opinion. This will probably be the match of the two. All 4 of these coaches that are in the Final Four, flowers to them. They deserve it. They've done amazing things this season. And I think from the rip, we've talked about Waters' team saying he's on the rise and he's a contender. And I think this is the time. I think if you're going to do it this now, and it's going to be a tough fight. It's going to be uphill. But like Ivan said, there's a lot of casualties involved. And Brandon can tell you, this team is very slippery with all that dodge. And even if it's Armor 8, it's hard to take them down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Anaheim, they get their full squad back. They get the Roger. They're ready to go. All cylinders blazing. And track record, despite their regular season, they've just managed to do it. They have a prestige of just finding ways to slip out a win. But at some point, this black magic voodoo shit has to end, right? Am I crazy?
Sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes it doesn't. So despite, I know we don't have a lean on this. So despite the lean likely going towards the underdog, quote underdog Anaheim, defending champs, I'm gonna give it to Waters, but it's gonna be a very tight 2-1. and it really depends on whether or not Underheim can get casualties, because their match against Khazad-dûm's a perfect example. They got one Kaz, but that's all they needed.
Yeah.
One Kaz to get that game cinching score, and just a couple good rolls is all you need. That's Blood Bowl, baby. But their differential has been really bad this season. But again, it just matters now. Doesn't matter what happened before. Champions have short memories. Roll with it. But I'm going to give the lean to the Matrix, but a very slight one. So, Waters, it's your time to shine. Let's see it. It might be a hot take.
No, I think it's a good take.
They're so stunned they're not speaking.
I was
waiting to my opinion.
Yes, I was giving Laws space to talk about his match.
Go ahead.
Like I said, you could have killed me when you had the chance.
I'm kicking myself.
That's been the whole season. I can point.
Laws is talking like he sent us a threat on VHS.
No, and that's the thing is like at a certain point, I could make an argument that I've had a target on my back for 3 whole seasons now, and this season was a case where I probably should have been sitting at the bottom of the leaderboard the whole way because I was just in that downward spiral that low armor teams can get into sometimes. But I bounced back. I slipped through. You guys said it best. I mean, it's a team full of dodge. Waters has shown like this is a team that I think plays to a lot of his personal play style strengths fairly well. It's nothing flashy though, from my opinion. It works. But if that last game he lost, which was against the Dragons, is any indicator, sometimes you just got to throw momentum back at him and see how he handles it. And that's I could make the same argument for what you have to do against someone like me. It's gonna be, I think, whoever can gain control of momentum first. I don't want to discredit him at all. I know I'm someone who always tries to be nice, but at the same time, I'm the season 3 champion, and at this point, I've been gifted new life to try and become the season 4 champion. Y'all should have killed me when you had the chance.
He's come up from the mud.
There's so many targets on the back, but they're not monkeys. It's nothing like that. It's just motivation.
Yep.
Put that on a shirt.
You should have killed me when you had the chance.
Yeah, I mean,
seriously.
Yeah, I mean, you've got pretty equivalent armor, and the edge on speed goes to the Rats. The edge on just massive skills, I think, goes to the Matriarchs, just because everything starts with dodge. Their linemen are going to be more capable in this situation. 100k, 105k to the Matriarchs to play with. Yeah, I mean, I think for Underheim, it's going to come down to Craven Slayer's got to have a MVP day. He's on the top of our leaderboards for casualties for a reason, and he's got to show up. And then as far as the Matriarchs, like, I think it's got to come down to them working as a unit, with all of that block, dodge, and all of the other skills that the blitzers and blockers start with, and the guard on Terrace. Yeah, they got to be a unit and systematically break down the Underheim. I think this one gets wild. I could definitely see 3-2. I think there will be 5 touchdowns in this game.
This just could turn into a shootout.
Yeah, I think
this could turn into overtime.
I think it's going to be a shootout. I think it's gonna resemble the Uptels Chosen Grung Underheim playoff match from last year, where
be an echo of that.
Yeah, where it's just going to get to the very end here, and someone's going to put it in on 16, and if they don't, then it's 2-2, and somebody's going to have to put it in the next 8. So, yeah, I mean, because like Brando said, like you look at the regular season record, we got 6-3 on one, 2-3 and 4 on the other. If you just look at that, it's an open and closed book, but like that's not the way this game works. Everyone's 0-0 right now, and both teams are healthy. And both coaches are championship caliber, so it's gonna be a good one.
It's gonna be a great one.
Yeah,
I'm sad this one won't be on stream. Frankly.
I would love to watch.
I would love to watch this one.
Yep. It is a shame, but we'll get to talk about it right here on Wartscenter.
All right, next up.
All right, next up on the other side, we've got the only remaining 1 seed, the Lizards with Attitude, against the Butcher's Bay Dragons, the number 2 seed.
I have a feeling this is going to be a rather interesting match. Looking at the team value differential, Butcher's Bay has some money to play with.
Other way around.
Other way around, but
Liz has got 135.
Am I silly?
Yeah.
Yes,
you're
I
silly
am.
goose. You're silly goose.
Yes,
It's okay,
I
bud.
am.
Yes,
Take
you
it
are.
all back.
Yep.
135 ain't nothing to sneeze at.
No?
Now, I don't think that's going to be determining the game. And looking at how the Lizzes are built, I don't know that a star player is going to be induced or at anything. If I had to guess, probably a mascot reroll along with a wandering Oppo. Now, looking at this, the Lizzes are way more developed. And that's no shade towards the Dragons. They've lost some good players. They've lost good men in the field. The Lizzes have all of their players developed and they're ready to fight. Now, that being said, as we were discussing just a little bit earlier off camera, the coach for the Lizzes does like to stall, and that might bite him in the ass with the Dragons. The Dragons, very fast boys, long legs have them. Not that much faster than our skinks and whatnot, but I do think that's going to be a factor. Truthfully,
Is it?
I'm not done.
I'm not done. Okay, go.
Let him speak.
Go ahead.
We know he's gonna pick.
This all being said, although the Slorises are slow, they got skills. Our fast, slippery skinks are fast and slippery. And G Diddy is out for blood and baby oil. So what I think is going to end up happening is it's going to be a 2-1 Lizzes.
Okay.
I don't know why you guys thought I was going to choose the Lizzes that whole time. I was making it very elusive.
Whatever. I'm sorry. I'm just stunned right now because we don't typically disagree a lot here. I feel like it doesn't get too spicy here on Wartscenter, but like up until your pick, I think I disagreed with everything that you said.
Yeah, actually.
Because I think Dragons are very well developed, and maybe more so. You've got 2 blank sources for the Lizzes. You've got more block. You mighty blow on a blitzer. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's close. It's close, but I don't think the Lizzes are that much more developed in this state. Dragons lost a few, sure, but they've come back mightily.
So they haven't come back mightily, but in a game of inches matter.
Oh, absolutely.
So that was kind of what I was gonna say. If there's ever been an interesting like movie level foreshadowing, maybe like my Mega Man X fans out there, Lizzes and Dragons faced off week 1 this season, and the Lizzes won that game 2-0. It was an undeveloped Dark Elf team, and it was a redrafted Lizards team, and they had that block and a little bit of that luxury to do it. When we're talking about progression of these 2 teams is going to be the big turning point. I think we can all agree with that. The Lizzards have been developed this season, and they've gotten a tiny bit better, but their development has, I don't know if stagnated would be the right word, but it's a case of they've just kind of ridden on the fact that they've had a really good team front to back. And they do have star caliber players. Two Croc got a movement up and is a movement 9 skink. And this is a breakout game potential as far as anything can be said here, because again, no disrespect on the Grung, but that was a game that was the writing was kind of on the wall to a fault. If there's ever a chance for the Lizzes to prove they are a champion team, it's taking down this Dragons team that started out the season getting their heads kicked in for a minute, and then turning into what could potentially be a monster between 4 blitzers that, not all of them have a massive level of development, but it's almost like they were preparing for this game in particular the whole time. Like they knew that at the end of the day, I'm gonna have to come back and beat BLWA because 2 tackle blitzers, block on a couple of linemen to help make sure that, hey, I'm not just gonna let these Saurus linemen bop me in the head. And then we talk about star players. The pairing of the Witch Elves, Murdoch and Cold. One of them is, potentially another powerhouse, ball carrier in Rebecca Cold. And Daredevil Murdoch. Just jump in there and hope that you're going to be the Saurus killer. Like, it's a bit of a bloated TV. That's going to be the dangerous thing, I think, in a lot of matchups. But going into a Lustrian matchup, 130 is not a dangerous amount to give away in those situations. This is a really storybook caliber matchup when you consider all the elements at play. I think the more interesting game of the two, and I'm biased partially, but it probably still will be the Matriarch's Mighty Rats just because of how much stuff has the potential to happen in that game. But that's, I think, almost for the uncertainty. This is going to be a calculated game, but the better team's probably going to come away with the win.
What's your prediction, you think?
Oh, you want me to call it?
Yes.
Yeah,
Cool.
no. If I'm gonna put it on the line, LWA's had an amazing season. You win a Coil Cup. I'm still gonna take the Dragons here. I think it'll be 2-1. I think the Lizards will score that touchdown. That they're gonna have a really slow, methodical play, and they are gonna score a touchdown. But if there's a team that I think can pick them apart, it's the Dragons, and they're gonna find a way to take what the Lizards are probably gonna think is gonna be their second touchdown, and then march it back the other way.
Nice. This on paper is probably, like you said, the other match is way more unpredictable and possibly high explosive, like caliber play. We talked about this before we started the recording. The Lizzes have a very low event type of play style. They don't get a lot of events on their game logs. They're one of the best teams defensively, and the Dragons are too. So I expect this to be a relatively low scoring game. There's a couple factors I'm looking at just thinking about it. One is, and as a former Lizard coach, as is Josh, your scoring potentials are very locked in. And in playoffs, that's critical. Now, Two Croc is one of the best skinks I've seen in a long time. That boy fast. He's slippery. He fast.
16 career touchdowns.
Yep.
Yeah, that best skink of all time right now. But besides him, let's say he gets KO'd, you're looking at Anoli with Deroli to Gucci Mane. Like, those are your options. And Max Meller, which Chameleon Skinks are fun, but they're not nearly as fast. They don't outpace the Witch Elves.
Mm-mm.
It'll get dicey very quickly if the Dragons can get in and find a way to take Two Croc out. So that's an obvious bullet point for them.
Yep.
But another way for the Dragons to really take control of this game, take control of the tempo, is the fact that throughout the season, their scoring paths are the entire team. They spread the ball out. You don't know who's going to score with the ball. So if you plug up a hole with your really stout defense on the Liz's side, there's a good chance the Dragons will find a way to just flip it around, hand it off, throw it to someone else, and score that way. So the flexibility is on the Dragon side. But when it comes to durability and overall speed, I got to give it to Liz's. And I already made this prediction earlier. I'm along with Ivan on this. I think it's Liz's. It's going to be tight. I don't expect the game log to be very explosive. And honestly, again, I've beaten Liz's this season, and it really comes down to, is Two Croc on the board, and are all the Sauruses at full strength. If he takes out a Saurus, especially any of these ones, like he has the Croc score with guard, if you take any of this guard out, or any of the 4 strength players, it's going downhill fast. I could see that happening. But just off the rip, if it's healthy the whole way, low event, Liz's can do it. So I'd say it's a 2-1, possibly a 1-1 going to overtime, and honestly, Josh can win this game, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did. But Jesse's done a lot this season, and I expect that to continue. So either way, I wish this game was streamed too.
Yeah, both matches deserve some screen time for sure. All right. Well, since we're 2 Lizzes, 1 Dragons, I'm gonna throw my hat in for the Dragons. We're just even it out.
House divided.
There you
I
go.
love it.
Yeah.
House divided.
And I think it may come down at the very end to just that extra 2 seasons of experience for the Dragons. And the fact that, like you said, every Dark Elf can score. It doesn't matter. Edge 2+, if there's someone in range, it's going in. And we've seen it. I mean, if you look at the touchdown rate for the Dragons the past few weeks, it's insane. They're putting up touchdowns at a rate that we haven't seen since like Queen City season 1, averaging at 3 at least. So I think they're not even showing mercy at this point from what I've seen the past few weeks. They've got the foot on the gas all the way to the floor. And I don't think that stops. I think they score fast and furious, and I think they have a chance to possibly put it away early. Obviously, it just depends. The 2 of those most recent matches were against gnomes, and gnomes are not lizardmen. It's a whole different tier of game, but I don't know. I still think that momentum can carry them in to the finals. So.
I do want to pull up a stat here, and I can resonate with it as someone who's had to rely on every player on your roster rather than just your star players. And there's nothing wrong with obviously playing in players that are supposed to be your scoring players and your functioning players.
Yeah.
LWA have scored 20 touchdowns on the season, spread across 5 players. All 4 of their skinks, and 1 touchdown scored by a Saurus, surprisingly. But of those 20 touchdowns, 16 of them have been scored by either Tukrak or Taguchi main. So
wow.
Teams will have their main scorer, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it does say a lot for what do you do after your main scorer goes down. And we talk about the Dragons spreading on the ball possibly being the make or break here. 5 different LWA players have scored a touchdown versus the Dragons, who have also scored 20 touchdowns on the season. 10 different players have scored a touchdown for Butcher's Bay. And their Witch Elves have 5 and 4 as their leading touchdown scorers. And again, just at the end of the day, the Dragons had the flexibility to say, if we have the ball, we can just progress with it. Whereas the Lizzes have to play, again, it almost sounds like a criticism at times to say it's a low event game style, but it's what's working for them.
Yeah.
And it's saying, I'm going to make sure that what does happen this game favors me.
Well, and it's kind of how you have to play with Lizardmen. You have players with decent agility, and you have players that have good strength, and it's two separate facets of the game. So
it's 2 halves of
it begs to be played this way.
Their average agility too is a big thing, because compared to a Dark Elf, if a skink drops the ball, and he only has 2 rerolls too, I didn't bring that up. 2 rerolls versus 3, that might come into play. But dropping a ball, especially we keep seeing all this weather, but dropping a ball, trying to get it on a 3+ pickup in a scrum versus a 2+ pickup, I've been on the receiving end of that every season at some point. Like that is a fear for teams like this, where it's like, I have my main ball carrier, I need them to do the one thing, but if there's an opening and this adds 2 player can jump in, pop the ball out, and suddenly we're in trouble. I mean, they have a block strip ball blitzer right there. They don't care about blodge. Like the Dragons have the tools. I could say it.
For what it's worth, this might be the most divisive we've ever been on a game on this broadcast.
For good reason too.
Good reasons. We need to disagree with each other more.
We really do.
Nice to each other.
It's all right.
I need someone to say like curse me out or something on stream. Like we got to get there, guys.
It's all right. Well, I'm sure if these are divisive, the finals are going to be insane. So we have that to look forward to.
Yeah.
But
I this is a true heavyweight matchup at hand.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think both are.
I think every match is a heavyweight match. Yeah. I think this is going to be some of the best Blood Bowl we'll never see on stream.
Yep. It's 4 of our best left. That's there's no doubt about that.
Every season we've done playoffs when it's the Final Four. This is the first time we've expanded it. Every season we've done the Final Four. Generally, every match has been heavyweight, like tight. I don't think we've had a lot of blowout playoff matches.
Mm-mm.
Not to my knowledge.
Just our finals most of the time.
Yeah.
Just our finals. Yeah. We can talk about finals history
all but
in the next one.
Yeah, we'll talk. We'll run through. We'll do like NKBBL history. Yeah, and then obviously we'll highlight each team as a retrospective too, and their journey to get to the big game. And then we'll fist fight about who's gonna win.
We'll film it live, post it to World Star Hip Hop. It's gonna be amazing.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Yeah.
But at this point, we're just rambling. So but there's so much Blood Bowl to talk about. We could keep going for hours, but we're gonna cut it here. Thank you guys for tuning in to Wartscenter. We'll be back with you guys next week for the result of these matches, and one more episode of Wartscenter, and then one more streamed match. It's gonna be our finals. So thank you guys for hanging out. This has been Wartscenter. You guys have been awesome. Goodbye.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
It needs more bus.